Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns. This is the second in our trilogy looking at the Lord of the Rings franchise. If you have not listened to last week's podcast, you certainly should go back and listen to that first. And what you may learn is that Sol here, say hello, Sol.
Hello.
Sol here is very anti-Lord of the Rings. He's not in favour. I thought I was. Hello, I'm Alan. I'm the other regular guy here. I thought I was going to be against it. I'm actually turning out to be fairly indifferent. But because we're going to be a bit negative, we want to make sure that we've got someone, a voice for the defence of Lord of the Rings. So last week our good friend Sean came and joined us. This week we have another new guest. Please may I introduce Grace Miller.
Hello.
Yay. Hooray.
Hello, Grace. So, just by way of introduction, you're a Lord of the Rings fan?
Yes, Lord of the Rings fan. Not sure if I'd say Lord of the Rings nerd, because I know much.
You're not a super fan, yeah.
No, like I know people who can quote the whole film and, you know, have read all the books and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we didn't want to have to deal with those sorts of people.
I'm glad I can bring a middling fandom to you.
So just to get us started, obviously we've already talked about the Fellowship of the Ring. So just quickly, sort of potted little sentence or two. How do you feel about Fellowship specifically, rather than the whole Lord of the Rings business?
With regards to the Fellowship, it's a really good way of setting up the story. It's my least favourite of the three, but I do enjoy it.
Okay, so what do you feel like? There's just too much setting up going on then, not enough action, or what?
Yeah, it's a lot of just getting us into the world and everything, which is awesome because it's beautiful and you've got lots of detail and the costumes are all fab and all that sort of thing. But it is just a very long time getting to into the actual action for me. Okay. But I very much enjoy it because I like detail and kind of pandering around a little bit, but I realised the reason why I didn't go back and watch it again and again.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
When it came out.
And just a test of your Lord of the Rings knowledge, can you name the 9 actors who play the Fellowship of the Ring?
Oh, God, okay, all right. Ian McKellen, Sean Bean, Viggo Mortensen, and I don't never know how to say his surname.
Yeah, Mortensen, yeah.
Elijah Wood.
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom.
Right.
And the 3 other hobbits.
There is another one as well, a dwarf.
Oh shit! I don't know what his name is. It's just Gimli.
Oh, very poor.
Oh,
very
that's really
poor.
bad.
You got 5 out of 9. To be fair, you got the big 5.
Yeah.
But to be fair, you're not a real film geek. You're not really an actor in the film. Well, you are an actor, but I mean, you're not like a film
I'm not
geek
an actor in the Lord
kind
of
of
the
person.
Rings, no.
You're a Lord of the Rings fan rather than a cinema fan, particularly.
Yes.
So I'm not going to judge you too harshly for that. But you failed. I mean, let's not beat around the bushes. 5 out of 9, very poor. But yes, we will come on to those guys again, apart from Sean Bean. So Sol, where did we end last? Where did we end last week? What had happened? What just happened when Frodo and Sam had run off?
Sam nearly drowned. I wished he'd died. Frodo saved him. They went off on a boat. Gandalf was dead. Sean Bean was dead. Viggo was just kind of crouching down somewhere, I think.
Well, no, what? At the end, we had Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli basically going, "Hey, look, the main adventure has gone beyond us. So, shall we just go and fanny about with Merry and Pippin for the next film?" Which I was not a fan of because I thought it was going to be some crap side plot.
They're going to save them, not like.
Yeah.
They're off to, be brave and heroic.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares? So, where do we start with this one? We get Gollum introduced properly, don't we? That's how it starts.
Well, It starts with a dream. Frodo's thinking back to... We go back to...
we like
Ian
how
McKellen.
Rocky 2 and Rocky 3 will pick up with the last 15 minutes of the previous film. We start off watching that scene where Gandalf goes, "You shall not pass," again. But this time there's about 2 minutes of extra footage where he kind of punches the Balrog on the way down. But still no explanation or indication as to how he might have survived when he turns up later on. Spoiler alert, Gandalf the White.
Because the film wasn't black and white enough. Gandalf the White turns up. We start off with that, quick recap, because it's been a year since you watched the last film. Gandalf, we're just setting Gandalf up again because he's probably going to come back. And then, it turns out it was all a dream. So
I really quite enjoyed the start of this film, because it just it basically picks up with Frodo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep forgetting which one's Frodo and which one's Bilbo, so correct me if I.
Bilbo's not in this one.
Yeah.
So
I know. Frodo and Sam just sort of pissing about, but now they've got Gollum tagging along, and it's like a kind of buddy road trip, and I really enjoyed that dynamic for the first half hour or so, because it was like, you've got a reluctant character there. He doesn't really want to be. It was just interesting. Like, there's far more character, I would argue, in that first half hour than you get in the entire Fellowship film. And I just found that far more interesting, even though they were just walking along. The whole thing with them kind of taking Gollum in, not really trusting him, but forcing him to show them the way to Mordor, which they see at the start on the horizon, and it looks about 2 miles away, so about an hour's walk, but apparently not.
So I was also kind of happy with the introduction of Gollum, because my memory of it, having watched these films many years ago, is that, Gollum's one of the more interesting characters, because he's got a lot of shit going on.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think he's a bit of a mixed bag, Gollum. Yeah.
Well, what really came out of watching this film was actually we don't see that much of him here.
Maybe
that was my film, but I was expecting more.
That was my main complaint. I realised that I was really enjoying the dynamic because it was this sense of, it's this villainous character and that I've seen so much of, and now they're having to work together, and it's like when the bad guy it's like when Hannibal Lecter has to team up with Clarice and that sort of thing. And then I realised, well, no, we've only seen about a minute of screen time of Gollum at this point. It's just that I'm so familiar with him through marketing and trailers and The Hobbit and stuff like that. I don't know, I kind of thought, really, I could probably do with a bit more setting Gollum up, I think, to make this work properly.
I mean, you do end up with more of him in the extended DVD version. I don't know which version you were watching.
No.
But because obviously in Fellowship of the Rings, all you see really is some blinking eyes, and you get a bit of exposition from Gandalf about who this Gollum is. In the extended version, there is that whole section with Sam and Frodo and Gollum. That goes on for quite a bit. There's a lot more to it, a lot more. Are we going to trust him? Are we not? And which I really like. I think that's part of the reason why I really love this film in particular, is because you do get to, like you were saying, you get to see these characters in smaller groups. So therefore, we actually get to know them a bit better. Which
I think that's fair. To be honest, that's. Yeah, I should probably say I've never seen this film properly before. I rented it when it came out back in 2002, was it? On DVD, back when there was still video rental places.
Oh my god.
I'll have been 12 or so, and I watched pretty much the first half, not quite. I remember specifically the point that I gave up on the film was the bit where Gollum starts having an argument with himself, and I found it funny, so I think I rewound it to watch that bit again. And at that point I was like, you know what, I'll do the rest tomorrow. And then the next day came and I couldn't be asked, so I'd never actually seen the second half of this film before.
Oh my god, there's so much good stuff.
Yeah, so it's been a new experience for me. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. I didn't remember the first half all that well. So, I could go either way with this. I despised the previous film, but I was struck by how much I enjoyed the first half hour or so with Gollum hanging around with his new mates. But yeah, I mean, I suppose Gollum is probably worth talking about just as a character for a bit, because he was a landmark in cinema history. This entirely CGI motion capture character. And, really impressive what they were able to do at the time. Now, we spoke about how well the CGI held up in The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is it a lot worse in this one? It might just be that I was watching it on my big TV on Netflix, and the internet wasn't great because they've lowered our definition because of the coronavirus thing and all that sort of stuff in Europe. Oh, Netflix have put restrictions on how much bandwidth we're able to. They're not letting people stream in HD at the minute because they're concerned about a rise in use breaking the internet.
What, the internet's going to wear out?
The bandwidths needed for NHS stuff and so on. Apparently,
what are you fucking NHS doing with they're all watching Netflix HD.
It's based
we're not
on.
Allowed to. We're applauding for them. What more do they want?
It's based on absolute rubbish, and several experts have said, look, Netflix isn't going to do anything, but the government sort of suggested it'd be a good idea, and Netflix were like, all right.
They're only transmitting it over 5G now. Yeah, think about it.
Hey, I went for a walk in the countryside the other day, and they dug up this whole field.
Suddenly disappeared.
And I thought, what's going on? And then there were these massive cables, and I realised they must be 5G cables. These huge cables just lying out there. I could have had one.
Apparently, there's been attacks on some 5G towers. People have tried to explode them and stuff.
Oh god! I mean, whatever. It's not worth trying to convince anyone who believes that.
Oh yeah, no. My mum was talking about it being the reason that birds are falling out of the sky. So
are birds falling out of the sky at the minute?
Apparently,
yeah. Don't you see them, Sol? They're all over the floor. You see all those birds dead.
Oh god.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Sol. I watched this on Netflix, and in perhaps slightly better quality than the highly illegal website I watched Fellowship on. And yeah, I'd sort of noticed the cracks a bit more there as well. It's still good. To say it's 2001, 2002, it's still solid.
It was how the CGI models blended into their backgrounds was the issue.
It's lighting, isn't it? All that sort of thing, yeah.
There were a handful of shots where it looked absolutely seamless, where they do a close-up on Gollum's face and there was just gravel behind him. That looked perfect. But then when he was stood in front of some trees and stuff, it was all a bit oh.
Yeah.
I seem to think it's all right as long as you don't look where he's making contact with other things. If you don't just look at his feet, it's okay. And then,
yeah. I wonder if maybe it was that whole thing of the first film had such great special effects that they thought, right, we can go further with it now, and they went a bit beyond their reach.
But then it was still brilliant for the time. We had nothing better to compare it to at the time. Then it was this is amazing.
That is true,
yeah,
but
it was groundbreaking, and like you say,
but I would point to Spider-Man came out the same year as this film, and I think that was far more heavily reliant on practical effects mixing in with the CGI, and I think the effects hold up pretty much perfectly in that film as a result for the most part, whereas this film is a lot more whenever there's a practical effect, you're like, wow, look at that costume and that makeup, that looks fantastic. And then whenever the CGI comes in, it's more. I mean, my main question really is, why is Gollum CGI? Because I'd never really thought about it before, but it just struck me in this film. Why is it not just a creepy, skinny actor that they put some makeup on, whoever played the girl at the end of Wreck, that Spanish film? Couldn't you get someone like that in? And my guess is somewhere in the next film we're gonna get a sequence showing us Gollum as Smeagol as a hobbit before he became a creepy monster, and so it'll just be Andy Serkis with some Spock ears on and long hair.
Well, yes, but that you still don't need. that doesn't. You still got an actor playing that part where you could then. He still looks nothing like Gollum as a CGI character. So if he looked nothing like Gollum as a little creepy guy, wouldn't make much difference, would it?
I think it's because they can, or they could. They realise they could use that technology, and why not? It's like they're using so many different things in this film, and that's an exciting new toy to play with. That I imagine Peter Jackson was like, "Well, this is brilliant. Let's do it like this." And you can he looks so unlike obviously hobbits aren't human, but he looks so unhuman and so mangled and emaciated, and I think you just couldn't get that look even with makeup and a skinny actor in the same way to kind of show how much the ring has affected him and just turned him into this bizarre creature.
I kind of I get that. I just personally I always forget that he's even meant to be the same thing as them, because he's so different, because he's computer generated, and I just think it would work better, this idea of him being this corrupted hobbit that's gone completely wrong, if they'd done it practically. Personally,
I think perhaps the problem is we never seen him out of that, so we do get the backstory, we get the flashback, but we get that later. So
that's it. If I had that flashback in this film, or ideally at the start of this film, I think it would have worked a lot better for me. But
I know what you mean.
I kind of like that it comes later, because it gives us longer to kind of have a bit more of a mystery about Gollum. Like we're piecing together bits of his story throughout.
The nature of the world that we're in, there could be a whole tribe of people who look just like him, and that's just what they look like. That's perfectly healthy and normal for them.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Because we have nothing to compare it to. So but I think we get a much better indication that he's not well by the characterization, and obviously the split personality element and all that.
The character himself, I mean, he was a breakout character. People loved him. I think it's partly because everyone could do an impression of him, but I always thought Gollum was just incredibly fucking basic, if you know what I mean. I complained in our Harry Potter episode about the art design on a lot of the film characters just being very obvious and not particularly inventive, just as it's written, without any real imagination beyond that. And I think Gollum is very... He's not a particularly interesting thing to look at. He just doesn't look nice. Do you know what I mean? I feel like if someone like Guillermo del Toro had been in charge of this, he would have been way more interesting to look at. But beyond that, the voice is so... I just remember Andy Serkis. I mean, this made Andy Serkis the actor that he is now, but people were raving about him back then and how great he was, and he came up with a voice, and you'd see him on chat shows going, "Oh, well, the voice, it's a combination of a cat with a furball and something like that." It's like, no, you just did the most obvious. I'm doing a voice. There's so nothing to it.
But there is a lot of variation in it, I think.
Gollum, I know. But it's just
Is
very...
that your impression?
Well,
I want to hear both of your best Gollum impressions.
The bit that really annoys me with it is when they try and justify the name by it being a cough that he does. And he goes, Gollum, Gollum! And it's like, fuck up. You could have done it like, like, you could have done it so it sounded like Gollum, and then you can buy, it corrupted over time, it's, But instead he just goes, Gollum, Gollum! And it's like, that's not... I don't think that's what was intended.
I think it sounds more like a cough.
Yes, we meant for us. Gollum, Gollum.
He's literally saying Gollum as he coughs, though. He's pronouncing the L's and the M's, which aren't noises a mouth would make if you were just coughing. I don't know. I imagine J.R.R. Tolkien intended it to be a kind of like, like more subtle than it is in the film.
It is a great embodiment of the character. I think it's interesting that Andy Serkis has gone on to play animals so often, because it is quite animalistic in a kind of human sense. It feels a bit like, a drama school, someone saying, "Okay, you're a chimp, now walk across the room as an angry chimp."
The thing is that I find very weird is that I'm not blown away by anything about his performance with Gollum. Like, not that he does a bad job of it at all, but I feel like any actor could have done what he did here that well. But in subsequent motion capture roles, I think Andy Serkis has been utterly phenomenal. So maybe was bringing something that was being held back by the character or the limitations of the technology. I don't know. Because I do think he is an incredible actor, and I love his performance in motion capture roles like Caesar and the Planet of the Apes films, or who else has he done? Snoke, I guess, in The Last Jedi, but not The Force Awakens. As in, I liked him there, not that he wasn't in it.
There's certainly a commitment to the physicality of it, and that really works. I think it needs to be, it needs to be all in. I think the voice works. I think he's managed to find a sort of creepy sounding voice that he can still emote with, and then have a secondary voice that's sort of similar but not quite the same. I think with all the sort of things in mind, it works really nicely.
I really love it. I think it's a really good performance because I think he's really good at getting you to kind of start to have some hope for the Schmeagol side of it, and feel really sorry for it, and I feel like that side of him really pulls at the heartstrings, like that argument that you talked about that you used to rewind back because you found it amusing. Like, I thought that was a brilliant scene, and especially the idea of getting rid of your demons and stuff like that, with mental health being so important these days. I kind of it really kind of struck a chord with me, and I was just like, that's really cool, and I really like it. And I think seeing him battle against himself was really...
Master's my friend. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. Not listening. Not listening. You're a liar. And a thief. No. Murderer. Go away. Go away!
I also think that if that had just been an actor or just Andy Serkis or whatever, and I'm sure there's footage of him doing it without the CGI on it, I just don't think it'd work, because it's just you just see this actor being so earnest and trying to sell it, and I just think...
I think it depends on the quality of the actor, because again, same year Spider-Man, I would point you to that scene of Willem Dafoe arguing with himself in the mirror as he goes crazy as the Green Goblin. Yeah. It's an incredible scene, incredibly well acted.
I don't understand.
Did you think it was coincidence? So many good things all happening for you. All for you, Norman.
What do you want?
To say what you won't. To do what you can't. To remove those in your way.
The board members. You killed them.
We killed them.
We?
Remember?
But I also watched an episode of Community last night where Chang parodies that Gollum conversation, and it is kind of cringy to watch because, Ken Jeong, he's not quite...
and that's playing it for laughs, I presume.
Yeah.
Still...
I told you they hate you. No. They said they just needed more time. Time? They destroyed your life! How much time before we take revenge? But they're my friends. I'm your only friend. No. Ha ha ha!
No! Yeah.
Can you both do a Schmeagol impression?
What does he sound like?
Alan doesn't really do impressions.
I know.
Alan will do Sean Bean. Do you Sean Bean?
Yeah. One does not simply walk into Mordor. It's a gift.
Everybody knows somebody who can do a really good impression of Gollum. I was in bed with a guy once, and in the middle of the night, he just started doing a Gollum impression. It was weird.
I think everyone can do an impression of Gollum, though. I think that's the thing. Jar Jar Binks 10 years earlier.
I tried doing one earlier, and I couldn't do it. Schmeagol.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I could do it, but I'm worried about trying to find it here on the show where you can hear me.
I think it's basic for my own entertainment that I want to hear it.
You don't have any friends, no?
No, it's too much.
You're doing Terry Jones.
I was going to say.
Hello! Brian! Gollum.
We want...
Precious. It's got to get a bit of... And then,
It's there. All the pieces are there. I've just got to figure out how to blend them in the right.
Lola Lola Blanda Dead.
Do you know what would be best, though? I think if I was making this film now, I'd definitely cast Stephen Graham as Gollum.
Oh, man.
I'd cast Stephen Graham as
Genuinely, not as a joke, if you were casting this film now, and you can't cast Andy Serkis, who would you cast as Gollum?
Ooh.
I'd give Joe Gilgun a call.
Oh, fucking hell. Joe Gilgun can do anything.
The most likeable man in the world. So
Yeah.
you're going to be sympathetic off the bat. Quite menacing when he wants to be. I think he'd knock it out the park.
Well, that's the beauty of Gollum as a character. I think that it is. I mean, I was going to say it's probably one of the most sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Not just simply black and white character. Is there is some blurred lines there.
Oh, I think he is by far and away the most interesting character in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There might be someone in the third film that surprises me, but certainly based on the first two films.
But yeah, even this character, even though this character you can say is not black and white, it is defined by a black side and a white side.
Sort of,
but that's it.
Translucent skin.
But that's it. Like, even this character is only pure good and pure evil, and like one or the other at any given moment. Still not a grey character. So but I was a bit disappointed with how little I got of Gollum in this whole film, and I think that's a problem with the film as a whole, in that it's got like 3 different stories going on that do all come together. Yes.
Yeah, but one of them is considerably weaker than others.
What?
Yeah.
Merry and Pippin talking to trees? That needed an hour of screen time.
It really did, though, because trees do everything very slowly. They're very specific to say. In a scene that felt like it was being played for laughs, the way it was structured, but I think was actually serious. I don't really know what
the trees scene.
I think the trees are meant to... The Ents are meant to bring some comedy to it. They're not trees, they're Ents, guys.
See, that I think the concept of comedy in these films is really setting a low bar. There's so many opportunities to have fun with it. And if you're gonna... Because that whole storyline, the whole Merry Pippin storyline, could be taken out of this film, because even if you literally had them turn up at the end, I know they actually turn up somewhere else, but if you had them turn up at the end on a walking tree, and they're like, "Where the fuck have you come from? We thought you were dead." Like, no, we're with the trees. We've come to save the day, and that would be fine. In the same way, Gandalf just turns up from out of nowhere.
Yeah,
But I think they left that in because they thought, oh, we better have a bit of, Merry and Pippin. They're good, funny characters, aren't they? Talking to the tree.
Right, so my biggest complaint with Treebeard, right?
Is it that John Rhys Davies is doing the voice, and you're like, why is Gimli a tree now? What's going on?
That's my second biggest complaint. My biggest complaint with Treebeard is he's introduced, and then they go, oh, we're talking tree. And he goes, I'm no tree. Your name is fucking Treebeard. Don't get offended that someone thinks you're a tree when you have tree as the first half of your name. You must be aware that you look like a tree.
Yeah, but my name's Grace, and I'm not in any way graceful, so you can't judge a person by their name. Or an end by their name.
Yeah, you're not sunny, are you? Your sunny disposition.
I do taste like a cheap beer, though. So.
Corona. But yeah, the fact that it's John Rhys Davies' voice, I don't know if they thought they were just going to get away with that, but it's not even him doing a different character voice. It's the same voice.
I actually had no idea that it was the same voice.
They just needed to save some money. They'd spent millions on this, Alan. They needed to save some pennies somewhere. They were like, oh, we got him over here, just sat in a trailer.
Yeah, I mean, were they in a recording studio and the guy didn't turn up and they were like, John, can you do this for us?
It's bizarre, isn't it? I did think, what a missed opportunity to turn this into a really fun, interesting character. It's a shame Taika Waititi wasn't more established back then, because I think he'd be the first guy you go to now for this role.
Yeah. Oh, I'm actually not a tree. I'm an int.
See, that would be 10 times better.
Yes, it would. It fucking would. So yeah, let's wrap up the I was going to call them Piper and Merrin. Then what were their names? Pippin and Merrin. Yeah. So they literally just take up 20 minutes of screen time talking to a tree. It doesn't go anywhere, and then they're like, right at the end, it's like, oh, hang on a sec, we are being affected by this. Let's go and fight. It just feels very wasted and kind of pointless and unnecessary. And they don't even affect the battle that we're dealing with, because they go and attack somewhere else.
Yeah, but they're taking him out of the overall battle. Which one is it? I get confused
Saruman.
between Sauron and Saruman because they're basically the same name.
Yeah, Saruman.
But
so Saruman's like the underboss, isn't he? So we have a huge climactic battle at the end of this film, but then it's like, but this isn't the end of the story. So obviously it's building up that this is, okay, we've taken out Saruman now.
Well, surely it's all to do with like nature versus industry because of the Industrial Revolution and all that sort of stuff at the time when the books were written.
They weren't written in the Industrial Revolution.
But around, like, after it, weren't they?
Well, yeah,
like
100 years after it.
Yeah, but like reflecting on it and like
but they were written as J.R.R. Tolkien was seeing the effects of industrialization upon the world and the change on the world. So I mean, there is a lot about that in this. Well, the books, I assume, certainly the films.
Which is why I assume that's an important like part of the story, which they couldn't just cut out.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. We talked about this slightly last week, and I'm not sure exactly how much of this is come from the filmmakers or what's in the book. But there's a lot of stuff in here which you could probably put down to Tolkien serving in the trenches in the First World War. You know, grime, mud, trees being felled, just looking across a devastated wasteland of that's been shelled to shit.
Yeah, with all
the dead bodies under the war. Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is from the book, but I mean, there's. You can see the scars of the 20th century war, yeah.
I do really, the Dead Marshes, like, that was a bit that, because I realised I hadn't watched this film, saying it was my favourite Lord of the Rings film, I hadn't watched it for 14 years, so...
Yeah, even fans can't take it that much.
But when I did watch, I was like obsessed. I watched this extended DVD version over and over again. I watched all of the extras. Watching it again, there was so much I was like, I completely forgot any of this happened. And like, it's a lot creepier than I remember it being. And the Dead Marshes especially.
Oh, God, yeah.
That is a really
it.
Moment, and they're seeing just those bodies under there.
It made me want, like, I always long for Peter Jackson to return to making horror movies, but that really made me feel even more sad about the fact that he hasn't done one in forever.
Well, I don't know, but that whole bit, well, I was just thinking, what is this ghost now? River ghost? What's going on? It's just like I felt like there wasn't any context for this. Why was, and...
Well, that's the battle from the beginning of the first one, isn't it?
But Frodo's, like, losing his mind.
Yeah, he goes, like, catatonic because a ghost looks at him in some water.
And I want to argue that it's quite subtle, him slowly kind of degenerating as he goes along, but I don't know, I think we need to see something. We need to see what's going on, and it's all just expressed in him, like... going a bit dizzy and faint and then suddenly like collapsing and stuff. I don't know, but
then snapping at his mate, being like, will you fuck off? And then, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Frodo.
Yeah, I don't know. And then, so that whole swamp bit was sort of the kind of ultimate sense of that, where it's just like, what's going on? I know, like, they're the fallen, spirits or whatever, but it's like, we've got ghosts now. And he's just being drawn to them somehow. Why? What's that got to do with an evil ring?
Didn't he say something to the effect of they'd all been corrupted by some of this evil magic that's knocking around and trapped there because they'd all been drawn in by...
Well, aren't they all the fallen from the big battle at the beginning of the first film? Like, where the ring was involved and stuff, so that's their relationship.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was any more nonsensical than the other stuff in this.
But I think
the
that's
first film.
the problem, isn't it? That we had last week as well. That none of it means anything. There's no subtext to it, or not enough anyway. And
Yeah.
it is just like, oh, what fantasy bollocks can I put in this chapter then?
I hated the first film so much, but having, just beating me over the head for 3 hours with that bullshit, I think I was just numb to it by the time I sat down to watch this film. So it just didn't bother me in the same way. And I could just kind of be like, yeah, whatever. It's a load of magic. Whatever. It's fine.
The swamp bit, just particularly because it added nothing. They just sort of came away from it and then walked off. It had no effect. It had no consequences. It was just nothing.
Well, just to kind of go back through the plot a bit, because we've kind of jumped ahead a bit there.
Yeah.
I mean, they end up in that swamp because Gollum is showing them the way to Mordor. Now, I wasn't entirely sure why they needed someone to show them the way to Mordor when, again, they can clearly see it on the horizon. It's like, just walk towards that big light. Pretty straightforward. But yeah, so they set off on the quest. Then we have the other subplot with Legolas shouting that they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
To Isengard! To Isengard! I had to watch it. I had to stop the film to go and watch that YouTube video about twice because I just really wanted to.
Well, I think one of my favourite videos on the internet is when, I think it was during production of the Hobbit films, someone playing that internet remix video thing on an iPad with Orlando Bloom stood there as they are doing some makeup or something, and then him sort of trying to
he's like popping up from behind the iPad and going, God, 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 and then back behind. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Isengard, God, 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 God.
What did you say?
The hobbits, the hobbits, the hobbits, the hobbits, the hobbits, the hobbits. To Isengard, to Isengard, to Isengard.
It's the best thing to come out of this franchise, if you ask me.
I think it's impossible to not think about that YouTube video when you hear they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
There's two bits like that in this film, and I suppose we'll get to the other one in a bit, but I was surprised how much it had permeated even my... It happened in the first one as well, actually. There's that scene where what's-his-name leans in and says, one does not simply walk into Mordor, and I was like, it's the meme, it's the thing.
The ultimate meme. I do feel like that, like Hobbits to Isengard, like that was in the early days of like things going viral, wasn't it? Like
I don't know what you're talking about, by the way. Just so you know.
I saw a Badger remix of it, which should tell you the era of the internet that we're talking about.
Oh wow.
Don't know what you're on about with that either.
Oh, come on, Alan, you're not that old.
I honestly don't know.
You do know Badger.
Mushroom,
I don't know
mushroom.
why are you saying that? Like,
You know Salad Fingers?
yeah.
Oh, it's something.
Right, Weeble's stuff was like a contemporary to David Firth.
Okay, I
He was
know
doing
Weebles,
the same thing at the same time. Yeah. So Badger was probably the big, famous Weeble stuff cartoon that...
Okay. It's possible I saw that 20 years ago, yes.
So, oh yeah, then there's a load of bullshit about some kids having their village burnt down, and I was just like, who the fuck are these people?
I
don't
said the
care.
same thing, and it never did come to be important.
Well, they do. They turn up at the main like Rohan place, and they pass on the message that the whole village has been attacked. So they.
Yeah, but then we
sending a
see them being
message.
reunited with their mother later at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, because that's obviously where they were meant to meet up. Although I don't remember her saying, "I'll see you at Helm's Deep."
Plus, all that all that is precursor by a big chunk of Saruman doing voiceover now, because, you know, there's films like the first one. Why bother telling a story when you can just have someone doing a voiceover to give you a load of shit information? And then it turned out all he was doing was like winding up some men with beards.
My next note is some boring men with bright blue eyes and beards. Who are they? One sentenced to death. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, no idea, no desire to learn who they are or know more.
Because obviously the whole point is that Saruman is divide to conquer. So he's getting these tribe of men to attack this tribe of men and pit the men against each other so they don't all come together. I just feel like that could have been easily said or shown in a different way and made it a bit clearer, or at least defined these characters. Because what we're actually doing here is setting up the Rohan people, and bear in mind that these don't work as 3 separate films. So we're 4 hours in to a 9-hour story here, and we're establishing a whole new world and a whole new set of characters. Like, that is not good storytelling. Why is Rohan only just turning up now? Who the fuck are they?
They're the Horse Lords. They tell you. Aragorn Oh, they give you the information.
Did they say the word Horse Lord?
Yeah. They kind of come up the rock and they look, and Aragorn's like, Rohan, the home of the Horse Lords, or something like that. And then we know who they are.
But then we get this very basic setup of this family dynamic. So you got the king, who's like in some sort of funk, a son who then is dead. I don't really know, but then I think the other one's the nephew who actually goes off and then ends up coming back at the end. I wasn't really getting all that. There's a woman who picks up a sword and like, oh, a woman with a sword. She's the daughter, I think. Obviously, she's not allowed to.
She's the niece as well.
Oh, she's a niece as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's sort of whole going on. You've got Brad Dourif there doing like a totally bigger character than everyone else is doing.
Well, yeah, normally he's used to playing tiny characters, isn't he? Like doll size.
I'm really impressed at how they keep up like that constant level of moisture on his face. There's a load of stuff that's cut out.
I did really think the cinematography was a step up in this one. I sort of complained that a lot of the first film's cinematography wasn't actually that great. It was just that they were filming it in New Zealand and it looks beautiful by default. But I don't know, I thought there was a lot of more interesting camera decisions being made in this one, some more interesting lighting and stuff happening. Still quite, prone to the complaints I had last time round, but I liked it more in this film. It felt like an improvement.
Am I supposed to know the difference between orcs and Uruk-hai, and does it matter?
Well, we
Sorry,
find
what's
out
an Uruk-hai?
Uruk-hai are like the really hench ones. So they're the ones that have, like, in the first film, they get bred specially for this war.
They're born from the dirt, right?
Yeah, and
I thought that was just an orc.
No, they're Uruk-hai. The orcs are the ones that are, like, a little bit shit-like looking compared to the other ones that are, like, really buff. And they're the ones that are apparently fallen elves, which I think they talk about in the first film as well.
Oh, I didn't know.
And so, the Uruk-hai are, like, built for fighting, and they're the ones that keep running, and then it's the orcs that are like, we need a rest. So we're going to actually rest for the night.
Is any of that in the film? Or
yeah.
Is this, you have to read the Silmarillion to get it?
No, it's there if you, like, pay attention.
I can't. I try, but I just glaze over after. I pay attention for the first half hour.
Well, that's something.
The other subplot happening is Orlando Bloom and Gimli and Viggo Mortensen, I guess, all running across a field.
Yeah.
Really fast.
There's so much running.
And they make a big joke out of like, ha ha ha, Gimli's crap at running because he's struggling behind them. And it doesn't really work because he's actually keeping pace with them at the same speed. He's just a few meters behind. And it's actually quite impressive to run across New Zealand at that pace for that long. So,
and he has got a smaller gate, he can't do anything about that.
Yeah, he's got little
and he's
dwarf legs.
No, they're more your lean cross-country runners. He's a sprinter, isn't he?
As he says.
Yeah. So it's about this point that we're half an hour into the film, and I was genuinely enjoying this one at this point. I've made half-hour landmark, flag mark, pointer notes here, like I did last time round, just keeping track of how I'm feeling. So yeah, I was enjoying it.
Okay,
good.
And then we go to the marsh scene that we've spoken about a bit, and I was struck that it doesn't really it's interesting, isn't it, that Gollum, he's completely, disheveled, corrupted to the point that obviously not worried about his appearance anymore, doesn't comb his hair from the look of it, doesn't brush his teeth, I don't think, not really bothered, but still plenty of modesty because he makes sure to wear a little loincloth so you can't see his dick. Was the world not ready for Gollum's dick?
I mean, did you want to see a little CGI Gollum bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just flopping around in the marshes?
They did it in Watchmen. Apparently the new TV series, you can't move for blue dicks swinging around, so why not? I think it'd work. I think it would add to how creepy he is if his little baby dick was just there.
Yeah, if it was like a crazy frog type thing, it was just a little sort of nubbin.
Oh my god! Actually,
he is a crazy frog
does look
type
like Crazy
thing.
Frog. That's like...
Couldn't he just not have a dick? Couldn't that be part of it? That the dick had shriveled up back inside, up inside him, as part of the whole descent into evil thing.
Oh, surely dicks are evil, though. It gets bigger.
Yeah, yeah.
So then Treebeard shows up, and he's grumpy, and, I mean, the voice is crap, we've complained about that already, but the sound design is fucking terrible. I could barely hear what he was saying.
Isn't that kind of the idea?
Is it?
I think so.
Well, he's like Bane.
Talking in tree is like a weird,
Do you know who they should have got to play Treebeard?
Vin Diesel.
No, someone who's got... Oh, well, yeah, that still works. Someone who's got experience playing a plant.
Levi Stubbs.
Levi Stubbs, yes.
The hobbits go to... there's a big march of some soldiers or something. They're marching, and Frodo kicks up some dust like an idiot, and the soldiers look at him, and he's hiding, and they walk over like, did you see that? And then out of nowhere, correct me if I'm wrong, out of nowhere they get a magic cape from Harry Potter.
Right, I made the same note, Sol. I put, how is that supposed to be a magic cape, or is it just we're supposed to accept that it's magically changed colour? And then
is it just meant to be a really happy coincidence that their cape looks exactly like a rock?
Well, it doesn't, does it? But no, that's the thing. I made the exact same note, and then 30 seconds after, Sam says, "Oh, I don't think these elfin cloaks will save us next time." And so they obviously got an elf cloak that's some sort of magic. But I don't know if that was set up earlier, because if they were given that in some scene, I missed that completely.
It probably
where they go, and here is your magic elf cloak.
When they visited Gladriel and that sort of thing. Because in the extended version, there's more stuff about the rope that they tie Gollum up with. Because he's going on about the elves twisted it. There is in the extended version, they're talking about this elven rope, and they just constantly keep on mentioning all these different things that they got from the elves. So they got the rope, they got the llama spread, and then the cloak is another thing. So I think they don't fully explain it, but there is enough thing to make you think, okay, the elves set them up with a load of magical stuff.
It's like he pulls out a sonic screwdriver to get in the gate and whatever.
That'd be really useful, actually.
So, I mean, Gandalf's back at this point, by the way. So,
after
did I miss
fighting
something?
the
Is
Balrog of Morgoth, which I love the way that Ian McKellen says it.
Now, what I noticed here as well in this scene where they go in to meet this king or whoever he is, they're suddenly calling him Gandalf the Grey every time they say his name.
He's in disguise.
Oh, Gandalf the Grey! You dare come here, Gandalf the Grey? I know he is, but I don't remember them ever specifying that he was Gandalf the Grey. I mean, maybe they did once or twice in the previous film, but they're really, really hammering it home that he's Gandalf the Grey in this one.
Yeah.
And I don't really buy they would be. And then, of course, he drops a cape and...
costume reveal.
Oh, what's underneath? Yeah. And they're terrified. They see he's Gandalf the White now.
Yeah, because he's got white power now.
Because it's very much like with the whole Christianity influences that I'm sure J.R.R. our Tolkien was writing with, because like it's lots of parallels with the gospel and stuff. But like, so I think the whole thing is like he's meant to be a Jesus type character because he's kind of died and come back to life.
But then we need to see a scene where some women go and open up a cave that is dead bodies in.
We
and
have
he
the
walks
moment where
out of
Ian
it.
McKellen is naked and then he gasps, and that's him reawakening. And you're like, ooh, Ian McKellen's shoulders, woo.
That scene where he comes back, you know, they sense something and they're like, all right, arm yourselves, fellas, and then he just like immediately like throws their weapons away. But like he doesn't just go, oh hey, don't worry, it's me, guys. He does this like prank on them where he's like pretending to be Saruman. He's like doing the voice so that they shit themselves. Because he's like, hey guys, I'm back from the dead and I'm a prankster now. Hey. You know, good old Gandalf. But it's a good job it was Gandalf, because if it had been Saruman, they would all be dead. And that would be the end of the whole thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right, I've made a note here. 1 hour in, I've made the note. No idea what's going on. Some king got his memory back, but I'm not hating it.
Oh.
Okay. That's good to hear.
So yeah, we go into Rohan, and you got King Bernard Hill there. They free him. Gandalf frees him because now he's stronger than Saruman, so it's all right now. And Rohan is basically just like a Shakespearean theme park where everyone talks in Shakespearean sort of language.
Again, why is Gandalf now stronger than Saruman?
Because he died and came back to life.
Yeah, like so he like lived.
But
like,
why does that make
another
him
load
stronger?
of lifetimes, because Saruman is now corrupted. So whereas Gandalf is like pious and ascended and amazing now.
But you know when they say that doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know, and that genuinely like is very rarely true. Like you might develop an immunity to a virus, but usually you recover from some horrific accident. You're gonna be weaker. Like Rick Mayall, they say, was never the same after that quad bike accident, and he didn't live that much longer after that anyway. So
yeah, but this is magic. It's not real life.
Yeah, but Saruman's also magic, so surely he's been doing magic for longer.
But he's also like, he's cocky with it. He thinks he's better than he is.
Did he have to die and come back to become white?
I don't know.
Is it like a karate belt colour going up to black belt, and there's like a checklist of things you basically have to do? Yeah, to be a black belt, I think you have to teach for a bit, don't you? I think you have to compete at some level, like a national level or something. There's a few things that qualify you for black belt. So is it like that? You have to die and come back. That's one way to get enough points, or you can make a load of orcs and things. Or
the King of Rohan, and I don't think this is deliberate, but I think he is the most interesting character in this whole thing, and the most
really
kind of grey character, just in the sense that he's not a simple black and white character. I don't think it's deliberate. I think it's just badly handled and badly written. But the idea, because you know he's imprisoned by whatever this magic is, so it's not really his fault that his whole land has gone to shit and his son has been killed. But, you know, ultimately, he's presided over this complete catastrophe. They wake him up and save his life and potentially save his whole land. And then the first thing he does is, like, he starts throwing his dick around and being a wanker, because Aragorn is saying, oh, maybe you should do that. And he's like, hey, who's the king around here? I am, aren't I? And, like, they all just want to go, but you fucked it up, mate. And then,
yeah,
you know, he does a lot of that, and he's a bit of a knobhead. But then we're supposed to be sympathetic with him. And then later on, he's going on about like, come on guys, we're gonna defend Helm's Deep. It's never fallen before, and we're gonna be great. And Aragorn's like, we're all gonna die. There's like 300 people here. Everyone's gonna die. And he's like, well, what do you want me to tell them? That they're gonna die? I've got to get these people worked up. And I like that. I liked all this stuff where he's kind of having to play a character to his men, but then he's flawed. He's kind of going from, yeah, we want to go out there and kill everyone, to, oh my god, we're all gonna die and I'm giving up. And then Aragorn has to like pick him up and say, no, come on, let's ride our horses into a load of people. It won't hurt us. Anyway, just that kind of... I think it's down to a badly written character where they don't really know what they're doing with it. But it gives us the most sort of... the most varied character that we have, because it's not a simple he does the right thing, this guy does the wrong thing, this guy does the stupid thing, you know.
I think that's something that, like, you know, with leaders, there's never the right thing to do. There's lots of options and what could be potentially the best option, and that's what he thinks. You know, the things he decides to do is what he thinks is going to be best for his people, and that's what he's...
But yeah, and I think, obviously, if you were going to make a film of this story, you could concentrate on it a lot more and play with all those ideas, and they haven't got the chance here.
I do think the moment where he's at his son's graveside is one of the few moments in the film that really has a bit of heart and a bit of grief to it, like, that kind of brings it back to the reality that somebody's son has died and that people are dying.
I was just thinking, who was it who said they were Sean Bean's brother?
Faramir.
Which one is that? Who's that?
So so you know when they're Sam, Gollum, and Frodo, they're watching the Oliphants, the armies.
I made a note. I wrote down quotes. It's an Oliphant, and I put like I thought when that happened, I'd better have fucking misheard that.
No, because I watched it back with the subtitles to check how they said it, and it's Oliphant because they've got 4 tusks, so they're obviously really different.
So is that why Tim Oliphant's named that? Because he's got extra stubble.
The people from Gondor, which Faramir's from Gondor, and they're...
So yeah, who's Boromir?
Hang on. Let's not brush past boil and mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew.
Potatoes.
Taters? What's I can't do a Gollum accent. Stop trying to do it, Grace. Taters, what's taters? I like that moment.
I like all the stuff with Gollum and those two. I wish that was the whole film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good sitcom setup.
Yeah. But yeah, then there's some boring stuff with people I don't care about. Is that what you were talking about? Is Liv Tyler turned up again? There's some bullshit romance that happens again.
Faramir is Boromir's brother, but we kind of only meet them in this moment where they've kind of taken the 2 hobbits as prisoners. We kind of don't find out that Boromir's his brother until he's been questioning them and finds out that they were in this.
Now, are they
fellowship.
Connected to the Rohan people?
They're not like the same group. They're from Gondor. So Gondor's like the last defense next to Mordor.
This is the problem when you just use white men for everything. They all look the same to me.
They all look the same. They've all got mid-length, blondish hair with blue eyes.
I've just thought of another thing as well. When they released the King of Rohan from his possession, they realised Wormtongue has been the bad guy all along, and he's been like facilitating this. But then they're just like, let him go. Just let him go. It's fine. It won't cause a problem. As opposed to, like, you know, smashing his head in with a hammer, which is probably what they would do. Or, you know, at the very least we'd probably do some sort of due process, a judicial, you know, kangaroo court, and then smash his head in with a hammer.
Yeah, considering Gandalf is the one who goes, here, why don't you hold your sword again? And then they decide to, Aragorn stops him from killing him. I do think that they should kill him at that point.
But even if you don't kill him, don't let him go. Yeah, just go back to Saruman and tell him all the weaknesses in our fortress. That'd be good. It's just stupid. And it's not like he escapes, or they just literally say, let him go. Fine. It's just shit. It's just weak storytelling.
Around that moment, there is about 1 hour 08, there is the one moment where a Kiwi accent slips through.
Oh.
Which is the character Hammer, who later on gets killed by one. That is the one moment of a little bit of a Kiwi accent.
Do you ever feel like naming things wasn't J.R.R. Tolkien's forte?
Well, especially considering the 2 baddies have practically the same name.
Well, so Gandalf's there, he helps release the king and all that. And then maybe an hour later, I suddenly was like, where the fuck is Gandalf? What happened to him? And obviously he turns up later, he's gone off to fetch, you know, the lads back. But was we told that? It's like he just disappeared and I didn't register why. I don't know if he said he was going. But then what was that? Was Ian McKellen, like, contracted at the RSC or something? Was he too busy? He had to cut him out?
we do see him like marching off to go and get his horse, and he says, on the morning of the 5th day or something like that, look to the east and you'll see me. It's and he like, I've lived 300 lifetimes, but I have no time. It's a very quick moment considering it's Gandalf.
Let's deal with the fact that they introduce a female character, do a kind of half-assed attempt at maybe there's a romance thing there with Aragorn, but he's too busy thinking about Liv Tyler. What's that? What were they trying to do? Why did they mess it up so badly? Why did they even bother?
I was having a read about that relationship, and it seems like in the books it's not meant to come across quite so romantically. It's more that she is this shield maiden. She wants to prove her worth and fight, and there maybe she is attracted to Aragorn because she wants to be queen and she's ambitious, but they kind of make it a lot more this kind of soppy
Doe-eyed
thing. Yeah.
When we're talking about the length of these films, and obviously in the last film we talked about it could have easily been much shorter, same is true for this, and one of the things they could have cut down on is like the 40 minutes we're setting up for a battle sequence where it's just constantly going like, oh, we got to get some people over there. Oh, we haven't got enough people. Everyone come up to this castle. Have we got enough people over here? No. These people have got swords now, but there's not enough of them, and they're too old, or maybe too young. This one's a girl. Let's not tell anyone. She can handle a sword.
I think it's a bit around here where we hit the 1.5 hour mark, and I wrote, "There is no plot. I am bored." So I think the film had lost me now. But then the best bit of the film is around this point.
Go on.
There's a flat out Army of Darkness reference.
Is there?
Yeah.
Go on then.
I mean, much of this film is very inspired by Army of Darkness. The way the castle siege is put together, Peter Jackson is openly a huge fan of the Evil Dead trilogy, and spoken about the influence those films had on his work and so on.
You watch Brain Dead.
Yeah, exactly.
Brain Dead is one of my very favourite films. So
yeah, and there is a very specific shot in this film where Saruman is creating gunpowder, and and the snivelling guy sort of comes over to him with a torch to look at it, with a candle, and he kind of grabs the guy's hand because the flame gets too close. And that moment is not in the books. It is basically lifted from Army of Darkness when Ash is creating gunpowder and a wise old man holds a flame too close to it to look at it, and then Ash grabs his arm, and it's framed and shot very similarly. It's almost certainly a direct nod. So that's the best bit in this film because it reminds me of Army of Darkness.
What about that bit where Gandalf holds his staff up and says, "This is my broomstick"? Seemed a bit out of place.
I think it's about... I think it is basically half an hour of battle prep, because my next note is just 2 hours in, that mark. And all the notes after that are still about this battle. But yeah, I put 2 hours in. Yeah. I don't care, but less passionately than last time. I think I've just sort of... just accept... Yeah, exactly. I just don't care anymore. It's fine.
Accept your fate.
Yeah.
I really love how they do the battle.
Well, we do have to get to the battle. So the Battle of Helm's Deep, which is sort of famous now as cinematic history, as like, best battle ever. And,
I was expecting a lot more because it's been built up as the greatest, battle sequence, action sequence ever. And I think it's people who don't understand that the longer you make something doesn't necessarily make it good. Because it's probably the longest battle I've ever seen in a film. It's about half an hour long. But there's not a single moment that... none of it was bad. It was all just very, lots of claustrophobic shots of sword fighting. Couldn't really tell what was going on. Quick cuts. People running around on horseback. Yeah. There was nothing in it where I watched it and thought, wow, this is choreographed amazingly. And there's interesting stuff going on.
You don't get a very big sense of scale considering the situation. It's because obviously it's not that big. They haven't got 10,000 people. They've got 500 or whatever, and the rest is CGI. You got to make it nice and dark so the CGI doesn't show too badly.
There's a wide shot before it gets dark where it looks so much like a computer game. It's really bad. It really stuck out to me.
there's one shot where they're all retreating and it kind of pans up over the turrets and you see them all running around. That was the one sort of epic shot about it. And then, but yeah, it's surprisingly small in terms of the way it's shot, and I don't necessarily think that's to its benefit. I think they hide it well, but it's also, I must say though, I was a bit scared because I don't like action.
You wussbag. Scared of all the orcs and the big monsters.
Yeah. But I must admit, the way that they do it, they have enough narrative elements in there, enough things going on that it did actually keep my interest. Because you show me like Transformers or Fast and the Furious, and it's just like whatever. But I was involved enough that I was watching it. So yeah, there's a bit of a battle here, and then okay, now Aragorn and so has to go over here to do this little thing here. We were focusing on these little moments, coming back up here and seeing the bigger picture, focusing on this little moment.
That's what I think makes it so good.
In terms of, I think it worked well in those terms.
I didn't get
because I was a bit scared this was going to be a 40-minute battle sequence.
I love that scene because you've got the little bit of banter between Legolas and Gimli to keep you kind of like something to make you laugh. You've got
that's it. I mean, the weakest banter in cinematic history. Yeah.
I like it. I think it's silly. But I like, and you've got, okay, so now they're fighting with these weapons. Now this is going on. Now Legolas is sliding down the stairs on a shield that then smashes into somebody's chest.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the worst bit in the film?
I love that moment.
Oh, hey, I'm Legolas. I'm a skater boy. Yay, Marty McFly, cowabunga, dude. The worst bit in the entire film. That.
No. Awful. I did notice how all the ladders that they had were the perfect sizes to mount the castle. Like, because they start off with
put some planning in.
Well, yeah, but like enough to like have these even extra long ladders that lift even higher up into the keep. That I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, somehow they got the measurements. They knew exactly how that was going to work.
That's going to be one of the first Lord of the Rings spin-off movies, showing the little scout who went in and got the blueprints of the castle ahead of time.
That's the
they found out about that
video
drain
game
somehow.
spin-off. You have to go and measure the castle without anyone noticing.
That'd be a fucking brilliant... If there was a video game, we had to secretly measure an entire castle with a tape measure. I would be all over it. I would love that game.
But yeah, and they cut to the scared children underneath, and there's plans happening.
That is the only reason I think that subplot is in there, to establish some refugees at the castle that you can be worried about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can be worried about real people, I suppose.
Yeah. I've made a note. Why is the Godfather theme tune playing over this battle? Did you get that at all? I have to say, I made a big sort of complaint about, well, not complaint, but I was very worried in our previous episode that given that the music in the first film is essentially the Lord of the Rings theme tune playing on an endless loop, I was really worried that it was going to be the same thing again from start to finish in this film. And they showed really admirable restraint, because I don't think you hear the Lord of the Rings theme play until this final battle. It's used a couple of times, but they've really earned it. By the time it kicks in, it's a really cool kind of oh yeah, they're swelling the... How cool is it? It was actually getting me going, because I was like, wow, they've held off from using the theme tune for 2.5 hours. That's really cool. But instead we kept getting this kind of Godfather tune playing.
Oh god. That does sound like it. Now you say it. Yeah, I like, for me, this battle, I really enjoy it, because I also like people throwing around big smashy swords and stuff. That I'm not much of like a action sequence sort of person when it comes to like guns and explosions and stuff, but this is absolutely my kettle of fish. And so then when we have the moment of kind of Gandalf coming to the rescue, like, you know, it seems like all hope is lost, and then you've got that the sunlight blinding the orcs and they're coming to the rescue, and it's like, it's really cool. And also there is I've skipped over it, but there is a brilliant line from Gimli that still makes me giggle like a child, which of course is you'll have to toss me.
Of course, yes.
You'll have to toss me. Don't like that. I can't do impressions of anybody. Why do I keep trying?
I've got a recommendation for you, by the way. If how are you with zombies?
I love zombies.
Have you seen Kingdom, the South Korean Netflix zombie TV show?
No, but that sounds amazing.
Watch it immediately, because if you're into action sequences with people fighting with swords, it's basically just 12 hours, I think, 2 seasons of just
of that and zombies
attacking, like it's medieval South Korean castles being besieged by hordes of zombies, and they're defending it with limited gunpowder and samurai swords, whatever the South Korean equivalent of a samurai sword is. Katanas, I guess. It's very good.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I think you'd like it based on what you've said so far.
You found my niche.
I'm not a huge action scene guy generally. Like I'm fine with an action beat here and there in a film. I like a big action movie, but I'm not impressed if all you've got is action. I'm not impressed by the visual spectacle of something. I need, kind of what Alan was saying, I need to be involved on like, ooh, what's going on over here? And I'm more interested in watching a character in the middle of a battle on a battlefield who drops their gun and has to improvise a weapon, or something a bit more interesting like that. That's the kind of action I enjoy. And I was really disappointed with Avengers Endgame for just being like gung-ho action to the point that I kind of switched off at the end. But I think I might go and rewatch it and really appreciate it on a whole new level after I'm done with Lord of the Rings, because I think it's going to make me appreciate how hard it actually is to do action of that kind on that scale that I enjoy to that level, that I just don't switch off of at all, because I just really, this battle did nothing for me. And and I went into it with quite an open mind. I was sort of gearing up like, right, well, the film's dragged on a bit, but there's going to be a big cool fight at the end, and just don't know, don't care. Chuck a few zombies in it, I'd probably be all over it, but
so the battle ends, Gandalf saves the day, and then all the orcs run away. Is that what happens? Don't kill them all. There's too many of them.
I think they kill most of them. They must have killed them all, because their only purpose is to be there and fight, so I think they killed them all.
They're still outnumbered like 10-1 though, even regardless of anything else.
10-1's easy.
Is it?
I could kill 10 orcs, yeah, in a little.
Is Frodo there? Is Frodo and Sam there?
They're somewhere
Where
else.
Are they?
So they're in like a city that Gondor once had. It's like ruins of a old city, and somewhere that they're trying to like kind of stop Mordor from taking too much, but then the Nazgul are coming in, and so it's kind of a territory sort of thing.
All I remember is at the end, Frodo and Sam have this sort of really touching scene, which was, they should have kissed. It was like the obvious setup for the kiss, and then they didn't do it. But they're sort of looking lovingly into each other and all that sort of stuff. If it was a romantic comedy, they would have kissed.
For sure. There's some serious romantic vibes going on between those two.
Yeah.
I think they should have just gone for it and full on made it a romance between those two.
Will it play in the Midwest?
But then you've got Gollum having this conversation with himself.
That's the ending, yeah. We just get the teaser that Gollum's going to betray them again.
That felt like such a hangover of the old ways of doing movies pre-Marvel. It just... it kept seeming like, right, Gollum's gonna mention someone and like, oh, she's gonna do it or something, and then we're gonna pan over to a woman's feet and not see her face, or so. It just felt like it should have come in the middle of the credits instead of at the end. The pacing of the whole thing just felt weird by modern standards.
I even remember when I first was watching it kind of thinking like, oh, surely the film's over. Why are they doing this bit? It just doesn't feel like the right ending for that film.
Yeah.
Well, it's a setup for the next one, isn't it? That's why. So, shall we rate the film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel much the same about this one as I did last week, in the kind of sense that it was, perfectly watchable, but not particularly good, and all the problems with it. There's so much here that doesn't need to be there, so much that I would want to make more of. I wouldn't go as far to say I didn't like it or that it's bad or anything like that, but it certainly didn't impress me, and that puts me right down on a 6 out of 10.
That's better than I was expecting, to be fair.
It's a point down from last week, though. Yeah.
Yeah, I gave 7
Oh,
for
really?
the previous one. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sort of the inverse of you, I think. I hated The Fellowship so much, and like I said, I was just kind of numb to this one. I just sort of settled in and accepted what was going to happen for the next 3 hours. And I don't know, I think there was just a lot more that I could kind of get on board with this time round. The little Gollum hanging out with a couple of hobbits scenes were cool. The fact that there was a vague sense of 3-act structure in this one that didn't exist in the previous film, because, there's kind of... Well, there's no beginning as such, but we just get thrown into it. But then there's very much a middle as they prep for a big battle, and then an ending where they have a big battle. It didn't piss me off in quite the same way. I just thought it was a load of nonsense, but with the same sort of technical positives about it. So anyway, I'm going 1 point up from last week, Alan, the opposite of you. So I give it a 5 out of 10.
Very strong.
Right. Well, I was worried about coming back to this film because I knew obviously that you guys were getting me on as somebody who liked the film, and I was standing like, I've not watched this in 14 years. What if I don't like it anymore? And for me, it still stood up to me loving it. Like, obviously, I've got all the nostalgia of having loved this film before, and the costumes are incredible. The makeup and special effects for the orcs, the scenery, the intricacies of the design of this film are just like we see so many different places and so many different models and there's so much work that has gone into this film. This film has been crafted, and how many people have worked on it. And I love the reason I love this one the most is because you have got these 3 different storylines going on. You get to know them so much better. So for me, this is my favourite film. I enjoy the silly sides of it. I enjoy so much about it. And I'm going to give it a good solid 8 out of 10.
When you say favourite, you mean out of this series, right?
Out of this series, yeah. Out of the 3. No, not my favourite film ever. That's
okay.
A whole different kettle of... I'd say 2 of my top favourite films are Brain Dead.
Ooh.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of Brain Dead. I think that's one of my favorites because there's so many practical effects in that, and I just love it. It's just so gory and fabulous.
See, it's weird, isn't it? Because that is another film that is, an hour of setup for a 30-minute action scene at the end. But I love that one.
Oh, it's such a good action scene.
Yeah.
When he's got the lawnmower and then there's this big, massive version of his mum, and it looks like it's all made out of papier mâché and fake blood, and it's so good.
We'll have to do Peter Jackson's early films at some point on this podcast, Alan. I want to rewatch Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste.
It makes me feel physically sick, that film, and I don't know why. There's something about it that makes me want to puke.
Yeah. The bit that makes me feel sick, the only bit that does, is when the guy's eating custard and then some pus squirts in it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my... Oh, that's a horrible memory. I don't want to be thinking about that now.
Was there going to be another film there? I think you said Brain Dead and something else.
Also, Strictly Ballroom, Baz Luhrmann.
You like the Antipodeans, don't you? You should just move to Australia and watch their film.
Strictly Ballroom.
Strictly Ballroom, yeah, because it's just got all these it's camp as fuck. Oh, you need to see it.
You have.
You must have seen it.
It's Baz Luhrmann.
I think I probably heard of it, And every time I heard about it, I thought people were talking about Strictly Come Dancing. That's going to be my guess.
You probably like Strictly Ballroom. It is a sort of like John Waters-esque Baz Luhrmann film.
But you like John Waters.
Well, yeah. But that's better. Okay, I like
But
it.
I do like Australians.
Yeah, I do. And also like Kiwis. I like What We Do in the Shadows as well.
Oh yeah, excellent. Yeah, very good.
That's a good film. I wouldn't know if that's up in my top.
Season 2 of that starts day after tomorrow, by the way.
I need to watch
TV
the
series.
TV series. I haven't seen it yet. I've only seen the film.
It's very good. It's basically just like 30-minute versions of that film.
Great.
Which is a good thing. That's all you want, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Oh, you know what? Another recommendation for you, actually. If you can dig it up, if you can track it down somewhere on the internet, What We Do in the Shadows, the TV series, is good, but what I'm really impressed with, and I think is great, and much better than it, and no one seems to be talking about, because as far as I know, it's not gone abroad outside of New Zealand yet. There's a show on New Zealand TV or something, like whatever their equivalent of the BBC is, called Wellington Paranormal, that has run for 2 series so far, and it's kind of like an X-Files kind of thing with the 2 policemen, if you remember them from What We Do in the Shadows, Officer O'Leary and Minogue. And it's just them being called out to like werewolf sightings and ghost sightings and aliens and stuff. It's fantastic. It's better. I prefer it to the film, in fact.
Oh, high praise indeed.
I mean, it's one of those things where I don't actually know if it's funny or if it's just that they have New Zealand accents, but
I do wonder that sometimes.
yeah, because it's just, you have a couple of policemen going up to a zombie and the zombie going, "Rrr," and then going like, "Sir, please, there's no need for that, sir." And that's just amazingly funny, but I don't think it would be if they weren't New Zealanders.
So we're kind of like Mulder and Scully. She's like Scully because she's analytical, she's got the brains, and I'm a man with brown hair.
Anyway,
so before we go, Grace, do you want to give us some spoiler-free thoughts on how you feel about the next one, The Return of the King?
I haven't rewatched it yet, so I'm really excited to rewatch it, having just watched the other 2 again. I am looking forward to the battle, but I didn't enjoy it as much as Helm's Deep. But maybe I will like it again. So yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I really like the Steward of Gondor. I think the actor that plays him does a really good job.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty vague for you.
So that's about it, right?
I think so.
That's all we have to deal with for now.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Till
I hope
next time.
you enjoy the next one.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us, Grace.
Yes, thank you very much.
Giving us your wisdom of the Lord of the Rings.
Thank you for having me.
So, Sol, we're back again next week for another installment in the exciting adventures of Lord of the Rings. Return of the King next week. How are you feeling? Are you optimistic? You're getting better as you go along.
Yeah,
second one's better than the first.
My expectation is that it will be my favourite of the 3, and it might get up to 6 out of 10. That's sort of what I'm expecting from it. Now, I could be surprised. Like I genuinely enjoyed bits from the first film and this film at the start before I kind of got bored of it. So they could make a film I genuinely enjoy. I might get sick to death of it and hate it. So it could go either way.
Well, do you want to make a prediction? Do you think any of the major characters will die?
Yes. I think Sean Bean will die.
Yeah. After coming back.
Who's in the Fellowship? 2 little hobbits. Yeah. Sam and Frodo. They'll survive. Gandalf's going to survive because they've already killed him off once, so what's the point in killing him off again? Who else is there? Viggo Mortensen's too similar to Sean Bean, so they've already killed one of them off, so I reckon he's safe. He'll ride off into the sunset with Liv Tyler. But those 2 little annoying hobbits, I wouldn't want to be one of them, because I reckon one of those can go and the other one will mourn them.
Like the twins in Harry Potter.
Exactly that, yeah.
But then you got Gimli and Legolas, who are just sort of muscle. Like one of them dying in sort of sacrificing themselves for the other seems nailed on, doesn't it?
I wouldn't be surprised if Gimli went, I could see him being the right level of...
Because Gimli's the sort of person who'd want to die in battle.
Because he's been a bit of a joke in the films so far, and I feel like it'd kind of be his moment to be serious. And
Okay, one last thing. If Sauron, as we know, is a big flamey eye...
Oh, I bet Sauron dies as well. Does that count?
Yeah. But I think at some point he's going to have to take, physical form so they can kill him properly.
Ooh.
So, who will be played by? And why do I want it to be Pee Wee Herman?
I think that's going to be Peter Jackson's directorial cameo in the film, is the human form of Sauron for a few seconds before they stab him. I think Peter Jackson has a pretty visible cameo in the first one, doesn't he? As a hobbit or something. I didn't mention in the last. I might have imagined this now.
No, it rings a
I
bell.
definitely saw a fat hobbit and thought, oh, is that Peter Jackson? And then forgot to look into it further. I'm looking it up now. Yeah, I've just looked it up. It was the guy I thought it was. He is a carrot-eating resident of Bree. Oh, and apparently he's in the Two Towers as well.
Where was he in the Two Towers?
He is one of the soldiers of Rohan, apparently.
Really?
Well, apparently, yeah. But I mean,
fun fact about the riders of Rohan: most of them are women because they couldn't find enough male riders, so they're women wearing beards.
Well, there's a screenshot of him here, and he looks like a woman wearing a beard. Just the quality of the beard they've put on his face is not very good. Anyway, I'll be sure to look out for him in the third one. Right, prediction.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson's going to die in the third one.